COP28 began on a high note on day one, with nations contributing to the newly established Loss and Damage Fund. COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber, in his speech, urged parties to approach discussions with a different mindset.
I ask you to start this COP with a different mindset. I ask you to adopt a different way of thinking. And I ask you to be flexible. We must ensure that this COP delivers the most ambitious global stocktake possible.
Of course, this conference was different. It was the first global stocktake under the Paris Agreement, an opportunity for nations to scale up efforts across all areas and align with the agreement's objectives. The overarching goal of the Paris Agreement remains clear: for all nations to combat climate change and keep global average temperatures to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and strive to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Achieving this target demands collective action. While global leaders like Ghana's President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo delivered speeches, daily side events, press conferences, and protests were routine at the Expo City. Back home in Ghana, there were controversies surrounding the number of delegates from the country attending the conference.
We are seeing the numbers soaring up. It is a success story. It is one that we should be proud of and be happy that we've exposed so many people to it. Nobody is being shelved elsewhere. But the question of public financing, the public funding, that may be where the problem is or where the challenge is. I can assure the people of Ghana that the government of Ghana does not and will not and had never founded these delegates or delegation that we so speak about. Indeed, the real government-founded delegation, some of us, we have the negotiators, the key operators. Those of us hold a badge that is inscribed party. Those of us can make statements and can negotiate and can do events on behalf and in the name of the country. We do not number more than 45.
And so the discussions began. Negotiations were mostly behind closed doors. Various environmental activists stormed the Expo City, demanding an end to fossil fuels.
Don't gas Africa! Don't gas Africa! Don't gas Africa!
We want a fossil fuel phase out. We're not trying to reduce emissions. We're not trying to manage them. As Africa, we want to avoid them.
Interestingly, not all supported this call.
I think in Ghana we use our oil for free education. That's one of the sustainable development goals. So you have to contrast that with other countries who are exploiting fossil fuels, but they have a very advanced economy. And I think we should consider the welfare aspect. You know, the fact that for some people it's about survival. It's about accessing the basic levels of development that every human being has a right to.
These countries we're talking about, they are the heavy emitters. They use the same resource to propel their industrialization drive. And their economies are now robust and strong and resilient because they have that source of energy at that time and even now. So if developing countries have gotten the opportunity also to develop these hydrocarbons, and all of a sudden we are to discard them in the name of cutting down on emissions, we think there's some unfairness in there.
Asking Nigeria to phase out fossil fuel, or indeed Africa to phase out fossil fuel, is asking us to stop breathing without life support.
For the African group of negotiators, Scaling up finances for adaptation efforts took precedence.
We expect a robust framework on the global goal and adaptation outcome as the work program comes to a close at this session, and we are disappointed by the lack of progress on this very important issue in the first week.
As the negotiations progressed, the African group grew increasingly disillusioned with the process.
The discussions here has not been progressing the way Africa wanted. What has Africa done wrong that we supposed to be treated this way? We've been talking to ourselves as a continent. I think it's about time we get out there and let the rest of the world know the hypocrisy in this process and how people are trying to make sure that they circumvent the convention and then the Paris Agreement.
In this COP, I came with high expectations of looking forward to our key stakeholders who are the lead negotiators having a discussion on a fast and free, fair, fully funded phase out of fossil fuel and tripling of the renewable energy agenda for us at the grassroots, because as Africans we are blessed with abundance and lives, and we need funds to be able to build resilience at the grassroots. In this COP, we realize that out of those negotiations, the big emitters are not owning up and taking their place to phase out fossil fuel at the level that we expect them.
Monday, December 11, 2023, a draft text was released. It sparked controversy, prompting the COP presidency to draw back and engage in last-minute consultations to ensure that the views of all parties were duly represented. The draft avoided the terms phase out or phase down. Instead, it states that fossil fuel production and consumption will be reduced by 2050 in line with scientific agreement. Parties argued the language was neither strong nor binding. COP28 Director General Ambassador Majid Al-Suwaidi said the controversy was expected.
We expected that. In fact, we wanted the text to spark conversations, and that's what's happened.
9 p.m. Tuesday, December 12, a day anticipated to be the close of the UN climate talks in Dubai. This was delayed due to disagreements, particularly on the language on fossil fuels. Journalists at the media center were in overdrive too. Consultations continued into the early hours of Wednesday, December 13. Later that day, parties adopted a decision on the global stocktake, with a charge to, among other things, transition away from fossil fuels in energy systems in a just, orderly and equitable manner so as to achieve net zero by 2050, in keeping with the science. During the closing plenary, it was clear that reaching a consensus was indeed an uphill task.
It is an enhanced, balanced, but make no mistake, historic package to accelerate climate action.
Would have liked clearer language about the need to begin peaking and reducing fossil fuels in this critical decade. But we know this was a compromise between many parties.
You can't say developing countries that have recently found fossil fuels and using it for develop should transition away from it by 2050. The emphasis on 2050. And then other greenhouse gas emitting, not CO, like methane, should just reduce in a manner that is appreciated. I don't think there's fairness.
But do the decisions made at COP28 effectively help in achieving the 1.5 degree target? David Akana, Program Director for Munga Bay Africa, has some answers.
To a very large extent, yes, we may sit here and celebrate the fact that there's language about transitioning out of fossil fuels, but as science is saying, as some politicians are saying, and I think you heard some more from the Alliance of Small Island States speak, again, we are far from, achieving the sort of outcomes that allows us to stay within the 1.5 degrees. As a matter of fact, even if you had Simon Steele, the UN climate head, what we are understanding is that, the number of actions, whether it's a global stocktake, the number of actions that are, a combination of the NDCs, which are the country actions to be able to address this issue, is still far from the, what is required for us to be able to stay within 1.5. But can we say that we made progress? Yes, of course. Remember, this is a multilateral process, whereby all countries have to come together and agree on movement based out of consensus. It is difficult. It is an extremely difficult and daunting process. That's why you see it looking very messy. So if you're one of those persons who believes in incremental change, then you'd say, okay, maybe some progress was made here.
A lot has been said in this room, and a lot more commitments have been made. But the real test will be for countries to deliver on their promises. Eugenia Akofakumi, Metro News, Dubai.